Empires do not collapse when armies fail. They collapse when trust evaporates. The most dangerous moment in an empire's life is not when it is poor or weak or surrounded by enemies. It is the moment when people stop believing in it, not believing in its leaders, not believing in its money, not believing in the invisible promises that hold everything together. Empires do not collapse when armies fail. They collapse when trust disappears. Because an empire is not stone or steel or borders on a map. It is a shared story, a collective agreement that tomorrow will still make sense. Think about that. Every law, every tax, every coin, every bond, every institution only works because millions of strangers agree to behave as if it does. The moment that agreement fractures, power becomes theater, and history begins to move very fast. This matters today because we live inside systems that feel permanent. Digital money, global markets, governments that promise stability. But permanence is an illusion. It always has been. The question is not if trust can disappear. The question is what happens when it does, because it has happened before, again and again and again. And each time the pattern is the same. Empires rise by organizing trust. They rule by monetizing it, and they fall by abusing it. When trust disappears, collapse is not dramatic at first. It is quiet. It begins with confusion, then disbelief, then fear, and finally irreversible momentum. An empire begins as an answer to chaos. People are tired of uncertainty, of violence, of unpredictability. They want order. They want rules that outlive individuals, so they accept authority in exchange for stability. At first, the system works. Money represents value. Laws represent fairness. Power represents protection. Trust flows upward. Order flows downward. But over time, something subtle changes. The system grows. It becomes more complex, more abstract, more distant from the people who depend on it. Promises multiply faster than the resources backing them, and slowly, invisibly, belief becomes more important than reality. As long as people believe the system will work tomorrow, it works today. That is the core truth of every empire, and that is also its greatest weakness. Empires do not announce their decline. They deny it. Leaders speak louder. Symbols grow larger. Ceremonies become more elaborate. When trust weakens, spectacle intensifies. This is not coincidence. It is compensation. Because trust is invisible, and power fears what it cannot measure. Every empire tells itself the same story at its peak, that it is different, that it has learned from history, that the old rules no longer apply. Rome believed its laws were eternal. France believed its monarchy was divinely protected. Britain believed its empire was too global to fail. Each was wrong in the same way. They confused complexity with strength. They mistook scale for permanence, and they underestimated the most dangerous force in human systems: collective doubt. Doubt does not begin as rebellion. It begins as hesitation. A merchant pauses before accepting a coin. A citizen questions whether taxes are being used wisely. A soldier wonders if the promise of future reward is real. None of these moments feel revolutionary, but together they change behavior. And when behavior changes, systems break. Because an empire is not held together by laws. It is held together by habits. Habits of trust, habits of compliance, habits of belief. Once those habits are interrupted, no decree can restore them. This is the fracture point, and every empire reaches it. In medieval Europe, gold was heavy, dangerous to transport, and easy to steal. So merchants left their coins with goldsmiths, craftsmen who already owned secure vaults. The goldsmith issued a receipt, a promise written in ink. At first, the receipt was just a placeholder. But then something extraordinary happened. People stopped asking for the gold. They traded the receipts instead. The paper became more convenient than the metal. The promise became more useful than the thing itself. And the goldsmith noticed something else. Almost no one ever came to claim all their gold at once. So he made a decision. He issued more receipts than there was gold in the vault. Nothing collapsed. The system still worked, as long as trust remained. This was not theft. It was innovation, the birth of credit. The moment money became belief, the goldsmiths began the trick. The banks perfected it. The governments enshrined it. And empires discovered a new kind of power. They could spend tomorrow's belief today. But belief, once stretched too far, snaps. To understand how empires collapse, you must understand how trust is engineered. Money is not value. Money is a story about value. A coin only works because everyone believes someone else will accept it tomorrow. A bank deposit exists because you believe it will be there when you need it. A government bond has value because you believe the state will survive long enough to honor it. Modern finance is faith, scaled. Imagine a pyramid built not of stone, but of promises. At the bottom are ordinary people, workers, merchants, savers. Above them sit banks, leveraging that trust. Above them sit governments, borrowing against the future. And at the very top sits belief itself, invisible, unmeasured, essential. As long as confidence flows upward, the structure stands. But if confidence breaks at the base, everything above it trembles. This is why empires obsess over credibility. They mint coins with sacred symbols. They punish counterfeiters brutally. They stage rituals and ceremonies because power is enforced by expectation. Rome understood this. For centuries, Roman coins were trusted. Then wars grew expensive. Expansion slowed. Rome faced a choice: raise taxes or dilute the currency. They diluted the silver. Coins looked the same, but felt lighter. Prices rose. Confidence eroded. Merchants demanded more coins. Soldiers demanded higher pay. People hoarded real assets. Rome did not fall in a single moment. It dissolved as belief drained away. This pattern repeats. The Spanish Empire flooded Europe with silver and destroyed its own economy. The French monarchy borrowed endlessly until creditors lost faith. The British Empire ruled through finance until debt and overextension hollowed it out. Every time the mechanism is the same. When promises exceed reality, trust becomes leverage. When trust becomes leverage, it becomes fragile. And when it breaks, power loses its foundation. Debt accelerates collapse because debt pulls the future into the present. It assumes growth. It assumes obedience. It assumes continuity. When those assumptions fail, debt turns against the state. This is why collapsing empires print money. Printing money buys time, but inflation erodes trust silently. Inflation is not just economic, it is psychological. It teaches people that promises decay, that tomorrow is less reliable than today. Once learned, that lesson spreads faster than any currency. Today, the system looks different, but the mechanics are unchanged. Money is digital. Empires are bureaucratic, but trust is still the foundation. Modern belief is managed through communication, press conferences, forward guidance, carefully chosen words. Sometimes it works until it doesn't, because belief cannot be commanded forever. As systems grow more complex, people understand them less. And when understanding disappears, trust follows. People do not need to grasp every detail. They only need to believe the system is fair and durable. Once that belief cracks, complexity turns into suspicion. Collapse does not arrive on horseback anymore. It arrives through screens, flickering markets, liquidity freezes, emergency announcements, fast, quiet, total. The final lesson is not fear, it is clarity. Trust is power. Power without trust is weight without support. Empires that remember this adapt. Those that forget decay from within. For the individual, the lesson is awareness. Money is a promise. Systems are human-made. History is pattern, not destiny. Collapse is not inevitable, but blindness makes it likely. History doesn't repeat. It reveals. And if you understand the past, you see the future more clearly.